Hey, thank you for joining us. I'm Mike Jennings, and this is the Military Minute Podcast. Today we're going to talk about forward-looking questions in your interview. And what we're talking about when we say forward-looking questions is that these are actually personal questions that are being asked of you to talk about your being someplace in the future. So sometimes these questions can be asked as, where do you see yourself in 5 years or 10 years? They can be questions like, what are your goals? Or what are you trying to accomplish in your life? So ultimately, the most significant thing to remember in these types of questions is, first of all, these are about things that haven't happened yet. These are really about forecasting. The second part of these questions that's important to remember is that these are questions that are not used to screen you into an interview. These are questions that are used to screen you out of an interview. Let's go back to something that we've talked about quite a bit in this process. If you've been watching these videos and working your way through the Foundation series, you understand that pain is an important part of this process. You have a degree of pain in your life, which is why it is that you've gone out and decided to seek employment someplace, whether you're coming from active duty or whether you're making a change later in your life after the transition. The employer has a pain as well. And the employer has pain because there is some type of work function and work goal that isn't able to be accomplished long term with their existing staff. So therefore, they have to go out and go through the process of finding somebody to bring on their team. And the only time that they do that is when the pain of not filling that role exceeds the pain of what it's going to take for them to have to go through the process of filling the role. So you have to remember that when you're coming into this, anything it is that you're talking about that does not specifically address their pain is going to be things that are going to make them like you less. If you are talking about things that address their pain, this is what's going to make them like you more. So, how do you talk about your future in a way that is honest and accurate about your goals or about where you want to be or about what's important to you without blowing you out of an opportunity? This is what's important. So we'll start off with what I hear a lot from people when I ask them what do they want to do and they've come to me for the very first time. And usually they'll say to me, well, I'm looking for a good job that takes advantage of my skills, that pays well and has room for advancement. And at that phase of the process, I usually kind of laugh because I've never had anybody ask me for a bad job that plays terribly, that has no room for advancement, and the leadership is poor, right? So we have to quantify this a little bit. But usually, the problem with these forward-looking questions is that it's all about that advancement piece. And one of the things that employers are really concerned about these days, when it's so hard to find good people for their team, is what happens after I hire you for this job? Because their pain is tied to this job, not to the next job. And so when you're talking to them about your future and you're talking about your advancement, everybody understands that good people want to grow. The question is ultimately, what do good people want to grow into, is the question. So I'll give you an example from an event that happened with one of our candidates here just this past week. He was interviewing for a field service engineering position. He had been in a field service position for 8 years. He was looking for a more higher advanced field service position than where he was currently. So we placed him in front of an employer who had that type of a position. And the position was exactly what he wanted. The problem is that when he went in and he was talking to the employer during the site visit phase, the company had already invested the time and money to fly him out there, put him up in a hotel, get him a rental car, and bring him in for the interview, that during the interview, he started talking about how he was interested in project management. And that wasn't where the interviewer's pain was. The interviewer was a service manager. who is looking to hire somebody that it was going to take a couple of years to get somebody proficient into that job to where she actually had somebody who could be productive for her in that role, only to hear the candidate say that he's already looking at project manager jobs as the next step in his career. Now, that may be true, but packaging matters, and how we talk about this matters. So when people ask you questions about what's coming in the future, here's what I always recommend with this. First of all, when a company hires you, they are displaying a degree of trust and confidence in you by being willing to offer you a salary, by willing to offer you benefits, being willing to offer you training and opportunity to really have a successful experience in working for them. So if you want to talk about something that is true to you and true to the employer, the first thing I always say to talk about in your forward-looking goals is talk about how it is that you want to show appreciation for that you're being hired was a good decision, and that your first goal is to come in and to hit the ground running, to do a great job, to make sure that within the first 30 to 90 days you are convinced you hired the right person for the job. The second thing that you want to talk about is how you want to grow in competency. Because these are the same things it is that you've done in other jobs. If at any point I'm talking about something that isn't true, don't do this. But what I have found is that this is the path that we're taught in the military. It's what our growth is. Come in, establish yourself as being motivated, as a good team player. And then secondarily is that you need to become fully competent in your role so that you can be productive, so that nobody has to be looking over your shoulder. Then the next thing that happens after you become competent in your role is that the military way is that we're told to continue to work our boss out of a job. Now, don't say that because civilians get intimidated by that in particular, because that's the move up or move out mindset is not what you have inside of regular working America. But what does working your boss out of a job really mean? What it means is that you're looking to take on additional responsibilities. You're out there looking to do more, to be able to grow and continue to improve. And then the last part of this is the things that you want to do to continue to educate yourself. If you want to get a degree, but you don't feel like the degree is necessarily part of what you're doing, then what you would talk about in this case is and while I'm doing this, I'd also want to take advantage of formal and informal education in order to continue to build my qualifications to take on higher level responsibilities. So I can't tell you exactly where all of this leads. In my last job or when I was on active duty, I could tell you what 5 years in the future looks like, but I can't necessarily do it here. But I can tell you that this is the construct of what it is that I'm going to do in pursuing my role here. And if you do it this way, you're going to find that employers love the answer that you give to this because of what you're showing them, that you're a motivated person who wants to grow, who wants to be part of the team, who wants to contribute, and not somebody who wants to skip over the job that they want to pay you for and go move on to the next one. Thanks for joining us. Hope you got something out of this, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time. I'm Mike Jennings.
Thanks for joining the Military Minute. Be sure to subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts so you're notified when a new episode is released. Is there a topic or conversation you want discussed here on the show? Send it to me at scott.cunningham@militaryminute.us.